when I attach, and I am a kindred spirit on the idea of, at the very least, having a very serious public discussion about what a new public safety agency in the city of Chicago or any city could look like, would look like if we took Professor Friedman's roadmap and questioned every possible activity of a police officer and whether or not they're the best people to do it. And then we reconceptualized the system that developed those alternatives into our catalog of responses, and not got rid of police, but redirected some of the funding to build up those other social services and other responses, and took some of the things off their plate. And in my dream version of that, it would free us of the FOP contract, because that new public service agency would not be restricted by that. And we would have to take, I'm all for having them collectively bargain their pay and their benefits, because I want them to have that. I'm not anti that, but I'm for having that discussion. I think a little bit it was a mistake by the mayor to just dismiss it out of hat, instead of saying we're open to consider everything. They're in the middle of negotiations with the FOP. I think considering that would put pressure on those negotiations. And if you don't get anything from them, then you can maybe move in another direction. So what do you feel about the defund the police concepts and discussions?
So here's my sort of take on this, right? So I think when you look back historically here in Chicago, and also when you look across the country, figuring out what the right size of a police department is just a really complicated question. Mm-hmm. And it becomes too politically easy when you are in a situation where you have a violent crime problem, particularly like the very insidious one that we have here. It becomes just too easy to say, we just need more. We need more police, we need more money. It just becomes too easy, right? Because then you can say, well, here's what I've done. I've added more police. I've added more resources, right? As a city leader, you have that to fall back on, right? So now what I think is so great about the conversations that are being had is now we actually see, political leaders and communities giving more deeper thought about how do we more wisely use the resources that we have as a community to deal with the public safety needs that we have. And so these ideas of questioning, do we really need police to do that? I think is fantastic. And as I mentioned earlier, there are communities who are seeing success by trying some of these things, right? Trying to create this, crisis response group that's not police to respond to people in mental health crisis. We have, also we've got places like the Crime Lab doing research showing what if we invested more in education, if we invested more in a high school summer jobs program, those things would actually do more to help our crime problem than adding more funding to policing. So I think these are really important conversations to be had. These decisions have to be evidence-based. It may not be something that we could jump into right away. We have to maybe do some trials and test our way into it. But I think it's just a really big opportunity, particularly when you hear, part of the challenge that we have here in Chicago is that we have these communities that have clearly just been over-policed, right? They've been over-policed. It's like too much. And so if we're able to dial that back, and it will also make communities feel safer. And we also know we have things like, last year, the Inspector General, did this huge report on how the department was completely overusing overtime. So, I mean, there's a lot to question in terms of how we're investing our city funds, in policing and in keeping communities safe, whether we're doing it efficiently and effectively or not. So I think these are great conversations that we need to start having. I'm excited about it.